Cable is the son of Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, non-X-Men member Madeline Pryor, who later becomes the villain known as the Goblin Queen, and another X-Man, Jean Grey, who kind of becomes like an adoptive mother but who also possesses Madeline's memories of raising baby Christopher, at least in the comics. Cable is Nathan Christopher Charles Summers. Most of us just call him Cable. Cable as a baby was kidnapped by Apocalypse and infected with the techno-organic virus. This is the only thing that makes him, I guess, kinda weak, but really he's honestly still amazingly strong, as he can even fend off the techno-organic virus, something that most people can't even do at all, containing it to one side of his body using his psionic powers. That in and of itself is pretty impressive, as like I said, the techno-organic virus is generally known for being unstoppable and usually pretty fast acting. Even with his psionic powers mainly preoccupied as well, Cable is still a hard one to best, as he has so many combatant-based skills that he brings to the table, and he is an experienced time traveler besides. What do you feel is the most powerful power set that X-Men, mutants, non-mutants can have? Any heroes or villains? Polaris is the daughter of Magneto, and while you might not think of Magneto as being an X-Man, considering, he did start out as an X-Men villain, he has also worked with the team before and even served as a member. A lot of people that have now watched X-Men 97 are learning all about this side of Magneto, this time in Magneto's life when he actually worked with the X-Men. At one point, he was even in charge of a whole New Mutants crew. Let's not forget that. Magneto may have some questionable methods when it comes to getting justice, but I honestly think at the end of the day, he's just trying to do what's best for mutants. Or at least he's trying to do what he thinks is best for mutant kind in the way that he thinks it should be done. Polaris, like her father, also has magnetic-based powers, which, like her father, are also pretty impressive. Polaris is considered an alpha level mutant, but I do think she also shows a lot of potential for being Omega, and she joined the X-Men team following the Krakoan X-Men elections for the team's roster. Shogo is the adopted son of Jubilee. While he's believed to be a human currently in the comics, also not being Jubilee's biological son, but also it's a little bit early because, mutant powers usually manifest in your teens, he has actually exhibited powers before. Yeah, and he's just still a little kid. Namely, he has had the ability to turn into a freaking dragon. This, however, was a power that was reserved for Otherworld alone. During the Excalibur series from the Krakoan era, Jubilee joined up with the Excalibur team, and she and Shogo ended up in Otherworld. Shogo's imagination, combined with fairy magic, allows him to turn into a dragon while there. However, as I said, because these powers were brought on by that shift in location, Shogo himself only has this ability while he's in Otherworld, so it's limited, And it's also, I don't think it's controllable, I think it just happens. Controversial take, especially because he is a child of two villains, but I wanted to include Graydon Creed on here because I do feel he's underrated and he is powerful in his own way, at least in terms of how dangerous he can be in the comics. Graydon Creed is not a mutant himself and is not a hero, but like his parents, he is of course more of a villain. But a villain who actually hates mutants, whereas, especially with Mystique, I feel like she's trying to be a villain to help mutants. He was strong from a young age, managing to find a way to survive at the age of 12 after his mother left him, coming to terms with the fact that Graydon would likely never manifest mutant powers and had instead been born, well, basically normal. Even though he's a villain, I feel kind of bad for Graydon Creed just based on how his life started out. It's pretty rough. He is the son of Mystique and Victor Creed. He is strong in terms of his influence and his refusal to stay dead. Graydon has been resurrected multiple times, and he also recently gained cybernetic enhancements that made him more physically strong as well. Olivier Raven is legally known as Olivier Lebeau and is one of the alternate reality children of Gambit and Rogue. Honestly, I feel like there are not enough of these kids out in the multiverse. For a couple as famous as Gambit and Rogue, you would normally think that we'd have, a ton of multiversal kids from them, just like across the multiverse. So many kids. Admittedly, I'm not quite sure though that Rogue and Gambit are really the breeding type, so maybe that's why that doesn't exist, but still, they're super popular, so yeah, you would just think it would be, and yet it is not. They seem pretty content right now just having their fur babies in the main continuity, but I digress. There is a reality where they do have kids. Olivier hails from the reality of Earth 41001, the reality of Gen Next, a group Olivier is a part of. He has powers powers similar to his mother's, except that he has better control over them and is able to choose when and how much power, life energy, and memories he absorbs via contact or doesn't absorb in cases where, he just wants to make physical contact without using his powers. Something that now Rogue can do, but it took her a long time to be able to do that. He can also absorb powers on a more permanent level, although he has less control, it seems, over when that happens. Like his father, he also seems to have some charm-based powers as well, which not many people know, but Gambit does have some of that sometimes depending on who's writing him. Chimera is the daughter of Storm and likely Black Panther, who hails from the alternate reality of 13729. Yeah, sadly Storm and T'Challa have never actually had a child together in the main continuity. I know, it's tragic. Unless they had a real secret one that, we don't know about yet. You never know. You never know. Something like that could always be happening. Chimera seems to have inherited the powers of her mother, but also shares a connection to the Earth, which allows her to draw on and harness its energy. She's also a skilled tracker and can communicate telepathically with animals. Pretty cool. I'd also assume, as she is the daughter of Storm, that she is a skilled combatant as well. As while Storm is more well known for her goddess status and weather manipulation powers, she's also actually an extremely skilled fighter as well. Charles Xavier II is the son of Charles Xavier and Mystique, if you can believe that. I know, it's pretty shocking, but it is a thing. Charles Xavier II was technically born into the reality of Earth 616, where we later find out that while Mystique took the form of Moira when giving birth, Charles actually knew that, he was in a relationship with Raven. She just chose that form while giving birth, so unlike many other instances with Mystique, she wasn't actually manipulating her partner here. Charles Xavier II, though, when we usually come to know him, and he's not just a little baby that we saw once, is all grown up, and is known as being from the alternate future of Earth 13729. When his powers first manifested, he accidentally killed his adoptive mother and ended up later joining forces with his half-brother Raze, another child of Mystique's sired by Wolverine. Charles Xavier II has a brilliant and conniving mind, and like his father is an immensely gifted telepath, capable of using his powers to bend others to his will. Ruby Summers is one of the Summers kids who I do not think gets enough love in the comics, which is why I'm very happy to be talking about her here. She is from the home reality that is shared with Bishop, that's the alternate future known as Earth 1191. Here she is the daughter of Scott Summers and Emma Frost. She is known for being one of the leaders of the Summers Rebellion, having been inspired to carry on Professor X's and the X-Men's dream and continue the fight for freedom and acceptance of mutant kind, inspired to do so by Layla Miller. Her powers are a combo of her dad's, Scott's, and her mom's, Emma's. Instead of a diamond form, she actually has a ruby quartz form and can also fire optic blasts from her eyes. Like Emma, while in her ruby form, Ruby is almost indestructible. She does not need to eat or drink when she's in her ruby form, and she also does not age either. This is also how Ruby appears to be so young, despite actually being pretty old. Proteus is the son of Moira McTaggart, who before turning into a villain, I would have actually counted more as an X-Men ally, if not a full-blown member at times. Proteus is Kevin McTaggart, son of Joseph and Moira McTaggart. He was one of the members of the super important team on Krakoa known as the Five. The Five is basically a team that was brought together and had their powers utilized in tandem to resurrect fallen and lost mutants. His powers as part of that team are mainly used to warp reality, allowing the non-viable eggs that Egg produces to become viable for life. Proteus is considered to be an Omega level mutant that requires hosts to survive. Initially, Kevin had a body, but of course now he's just pure energy because he does burn through those bodies, making him not just a powerful psionic, but also honestly a deadly energy vampire as well. Legion is the son of Professor Charles Xavier that was conceived when he had a love affair with Gabrielle Haller, which is where Legion gets his legal last name, as his given name is David Haller. Legion is so powerful because he suffers from severe dissociative identity disorder, where he has more than 100 personas residing within him. Each persona, though, has a number, many have names, and guess what? They each have their own specific power set that show up whenever they take over Legion. Because of this, Legion can do almost anything. His powers seem pretty limitless. He can manipulate matter and time. We've seen him literally time travel and completely warp reality as a result of his vast and diverse abilities and personas. He also has some pretty powerful hair, which I'm happy to say he is still rocking rocking even now in the modern day. Honestly, looking really good and really weird, Legion. Number 10. X-Baby. This alternate baby comes to us from the short stories that make up X-Millennial Visions 2000. Here in the story titled Bringing Up Baby, we learn of a son that Jean and Scott both have together in this alternate future. The story shares a conversation the two have, an argument regarding Jean being pregnant. She wants to keep the baby, Scott is contemplating them not having the baby, considering all the problems that then could arise from that. What if something happened? What if he just isn't ready? He's scared, and considering his track record with this kind of situation, I can't say I blame him. Jean keeps pressing though. What if their child has superpowers and can defend themselves? Look at Reed Richards and Sue Storm. They are both heroes and parents. It could work. The next page shows a picture of their son that I guess they agreed to have, who seems to have his father's eyes and his mother's telekinetic powers even as a baby. Their parents look on, slightly amazed and terrified. I feel like raising a super baby would be really hard. Also, where did they get those X-Men brand diapers? Number 9. Summers Twins. The Summers Twins are the children of Emma Frost and Scott Summers. They have a bit of a Cuckoo's vibe to them, but also have darker eyes and freckles than the Cuckoos, resembling Emma a little less and Scott a little more. They have psionic powers which allow them to create solid psionic objects similar to Psylocke's weapons. In the reality of Earth 41001, which they originate from, they are not the only children of Emma and Scott either. Their mother is very protective of both of them, as well as all of her and Scott's children. In this reality, Scott and Emma are actually married. Number 8. Strife. Strife is the evil clone of Cable, who is the biological offspring of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor. He was created to be a fail-safe child should the young baby Nathan die, succumbing to the techno-organic virus that plagued him. Creating this clone who would grow up to become Strife was the decision of Mother Ascani, who knew of baby Nathan's prophesied importance. Strife was also brought into the world with the same techno-organic virus that plagued his twin, but as Clan Ascani were present for his entire growth cycle, they were able to actually minimize the infection, reducing the risk of it becoming lethal. Both children ended up surviving, but shortly after Apocalypse busted in and the Ascani were only able to save one of the two babies. The baby they saved was actually the true son of Scott, Nathan Summers. Apocalypse thought he had captured baby Cable, but he'd actually retrieved his clone, Strife, instead. Strife as such was raised by Apocalypse to become his powerful weapon and potentially become the perfect body for Apocalypse to transfer himself into in the future. He was also pretty much raised to be evil, so yeah. Number 7. Megan Summers. Megan Summers is the telepathic daughter of both Scott Summers and Emma Frost. She is from the reality of Earth 41001, where they are married. She is the older sister to the Summers twins we talked about earlier, and her youngest sibling Alex, named after the deceased Uncle Alex, aka Havoc. She also studied at the Xavier Institute and was training to become a hero like her parents before her. Number 6. Ruby Summers. Ruby Summers is the daughter of Scott Summers and Emma Frost, and comes from the alternate reality that is also the home reality of Bishop, Earth 1191. Ruby ended up being named by Layla Miller herself, who suggested the name to both her parents. Her mother in this reality is dead, but Scott is still alive, although he is part cyborg in this alternate future reality. Ruby also becomes motivated by Layla to continue the dream of the X-Men and fight for mutant freedom. Her powers are similar to her father's, but she has full control over her optic blasts. She can shapeshift into her Ruby form, which is similar to her mother's Diamond form, and while in this form she does not age, nor does she require food or water to survive. Number 5. Nate Gray. Nate Gray is the son of Scott and Jean, who was raised by Forge, who basically became his foster father. Scott and Jean never really knew of their relation to Nate when he was born, as he was created by Mr. Sinister to be the perfect psionic mutant. Sinister created him using the genetic material of both Jean Grey and Scott Summers. Mr. Sinister just has all that genetic material. Nate did end up becoming the perfect psionic mutant and is known for being one of the most powerful mutants around. At one point he was even seen as being a mutant Jesus, being known for a time by the mantle of the Second Coming. He has been shown using his powers to heal and even resurrect people on occasion, as well as warp reality. He also is believed to be a potential avatar of the Phoenix Force due to his ties to Jean Grey and his immense power. Nate also has a telepathic link to his alternate reality brother, Nathan Summers. Number 4. Mother Ascani. Mother Ascani is Rachel Summers, but from an alternate timeline. Although Rachel has been explained in the comics as being unique when it comes to kind of her alternates. She doesn't so much have alternate versions of herself, more that there are are like different aspects of herself scattered throughout various realities and time, but Rachel is kind of always Rachel. She's both all there is and then kind of so much more than that. It's confusing, but it's also what makes her cool. This version of Rachel came into her own state of being after she sacrificed herself to save Captain Britain. Becoming lost in the time stream, she ended up in an alternate future in the 37th century where Apocalypse had taken over the planet 100 years prior. She developed the clan Ascani and would be the one to give the order for Sister Ascani to help save the prophesied Messiah referred to as Ascani's son or Dayspring, which would end up being her alternate timeline brother, Nathan Summers. So many alternate timeline siblings. Hard to keep track of all this traveling through time and alternate realities. Number 3. Young Cable. Who is this young kid? I thought Cable was an old grizzled man like we saw in Deadpool 2. If that's what you're thinking, well, you're not wrong, but also you kinda are wrong. There are in essence sorta 2 Cables, but there's only one Nathan Summers. Sort of. I mean, it's complicated. Basically, young Cable is old Cable, but from his own past. Young Cable, however, killed himself, older Cable, and in essence replaced him in the comics. While he's technically the same character, just from his own past, he's also kind of a very different person as he's at a different stage in his life. In essence, Cable closed his own time loop when he killed himself, which a lot of people hated as they figured, how would Cable not see that coming? And also, they miss old Cable. But of course, all of that confusion was explained. In essence, old Cable knew it was coming, but he also knew because of his past that it kinda had to happen, so yeah. Confusing. Anyways, young Cable is the current main Cable in the Dawn of X line, who is basically a loudmouth, gun-obsessed, cocky kid who loves a good fight, especially if he gets to protect innocent people along the way, or it makes him look badass in front of the ladies. He has dated a bunch of younger mutants already in the comics, but is currently in a relationship with all 5 of the Cuckoos, much to Emma Frost's displeasure. Just watching you, young Cable. Number 2. Rachel Summers. Rachel has got to be one of the most confusing of the Summers children, and I say that fully acknowledging all the confusing stuff that we just talked about, including the stuff with Cable. While there is the version of Rachel Summers that became Mother Ascani, there is also multiple other versions of her besides, especially as her splitting into separate entities is literally a part of sort of Mother Ascani's story. Anyways, this Rachel Summers is from the alternate Earth of 811, and for most people is considered the Rachel Summers, the main one. Here, she was born to Jean and Scott after Jean had bonded with the Phoenix Force and ended up living after having the confrontation with the Shi'ar. Rachel didn't just inherit her mother's extraordinary telepathic and telekinetic powers though, she also inherited the Phoenix Force itself, part of which resided within her, allowing her to use its power whenever she needed. She was friends with Franklin Richards and lived peacefully in her reality until the anti-mutant Senator Kelly was killed. This ended up resulting in pandemonium and public panic, which resulted in the death of her mother and her father, as well as an apocalyptic future where all superhuman beings were essentially captured or killed. Rachel's powers allow her to manipulate time and travel through it, which was kinda how she ended up in the reality of Earth 616. Number 1. Old Cable. Or just Cable really, we can just call him Cable. This was the original Cable, a man who was once baby Christopher, the son of Madeline Pryor and Scott Summers, and then grew up to become Nathan Summers. He was infected with the techno-organic virus by Apocalypse, but was later saved by both his adoptive mother, Jean Grey, and his biological father, Scott Summers, with some help from the Inhumans as well. Jean at this point was kinda also like Nathan's mother, and Madeline was out of the picture, having gone insane and become the Goblin Queen after she learned she was a clone of Jean created by Mr. Sinister. Jean was given memories of raising the baby that basically gave her a natural motherly instinct and attachment to the child, although I don't really know why that was necessary. She could have likely raised this baby as her son without needing those memories, but anyways, yes, Jean was also pretty much his mother. After saving the baby, Cyclops and Jean were faced with a hard decision in order to save the baby's life. They decided to send him with Sister Ascani, and they actually would see him again, in the future and the past, and pretty much all throughout and around their timeline and alternate timelines besides. Adult Nathan Summers, Cable, would also at one point become the one responsible for saving his own father's life.
Coming in at number 10 we have Raze. I love when we start getting alternate universe stuff because that's when things really get crazy. You can mix and match and get all sorts of super combinations that you want. And in this case we have Wolverine and Mystique getting busy and making a baby that has both their powers. Raze is the combination of 2 heroes to make one of the best spy guys of all time. Because the thing about Mystique is you can break into almost anywhere because of your ability to shapeshift, but you're at high risk of getting killed because you don't have any sort of protection outside of your hand-to-hand combat and skills with weapons. But then you mix in Wolverine's healing factor and some razor sharp claws, and you have a soldier who can sneak into any place and take out the competition like no one else on the squad. While Raze might not be the most powerful mutant of all time, you can't deny the utility and subtlety that someone like Raze could bring to the table. I don't know if Raze is a fitting enough name for someone who can sneak around and kill someone with claws. These should be called Badger, or Sneaky Badger, or Mongoose.
Number 9. Chimera. Chimera is the daughter of Storm from the alternate Earth of 13729. The same reality that Raze hails from, actually, weirdly enough. The identity of Chimera's father has never been confirmed, but many believe that she's the daughter of Storm's frequent love interest, Black Panther, which would be pretty cool, and I think is what we all want to have in here. We don't normally get to see what these two's future children would look or be like, so yeah. Chimera is a mutant like her mother and first appeared in Wolverine in the X-Men issue 36. She was created by Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness, and she possesses telepathic powers which allow her to communicate with and influence animals. She's also an expert tracker, which implies to me that she's either the daughter of Black Panther or possibly also of Wolverine. A reality where Wolverine is kids with both Mystique and Storm, though, seems really intense, so I'll just leave that in your mind.
And before we get into our next point, just give this video a big thumbs up because that really helps us out, guys. Coming in at number 8, we have Megan Frost. I don't know what it is with Scott Summers, but it seems that he has a thing for telepaths, or they have a thing for him. I'm not sure which way the pendulum swings, but either way, he has a few kids via telepaths. This time, it would be him and Emma Frost who would hook up and make Megan Frost. Megan comes to the table with a host of powers from her parents. She's got her dad's psionic blast, and she's got her mama's telepathy. She also has a host of telekinetic powers, so it would seem that Scott Summers might have some hidden telekinetic powers in his genes because his other kids do as well. Now on the downside, Megan didn't get her mom's diamond skin, which is one of her most legendary powers, but she makes up for this by training hard in hand-to-hand combat to the level where she could knock out anyone who might be able to sneak by her telepathy and get within punching range.
Number 7. Rogue. Rogue is the daughter of Mystique and Destiny. Well, adopted daughter anyways, but they were both definitely more influential in the raising of Rogue than our own biological parents, so I consider them more of her parents than her actual parents, I guess? They are her actual parents. That's it. Before she ran away as a teenager, Rogue was raised in a hippie commune by her father and aunt after her mother disappeared. After she'd left, she ended up being approached by Mystique, who was told to seek her out by her long-term partner, Destiny. Rogue joined the two of them and they raised her like their own daughter. While Rogue is super awesome and powerful, Mystique is rarely associated with the X-Men, which is why Rogue ranks so low on this list. Basically, she's paying for her mother's generally more villainous tendencies, which has also factored into her story in the comics many times before. Poor Rogue, and also honestly, poor Mystique.
Coming in at number 6, we have X-23, the most famous child of Wolverine, and certainly one of the most deadly. X-23, also known as Laura Kinney, is the clone of Wolverine, but also kind of his daughter. It's a little bit of a weird backstory. She's a clone, but she wasn't grown in a tube like most clones are, or I think they are. I don't know a lot about science. But she was actually grown in someone's womb, so that pretty much makes her a baby like any other baby, but she was for sure a clone. Are you confused? It's comic books, that's just how things are sometimes. But she's got all of her daddy's powers, and she can cut you down faster than a Vitamix blender. She can show that she can be a prolific Wolverine replacement, since after Logan dies, she steps into the role as the new Wolverine and starts taking dudes out just like her old pa. And something very interesting about this character is that the first time she showed up, it wasn't actually in comics, but it was in the TV show called X-Men Evolution, which was about a bunch of teenage versions of the X-Men all going to school together and having school problems, you know, and school stuff.
Number 5. Shogo. Shogo Lee is the son of Jubilee, and while he might just be a baby currently, he's still been a powerhouse recently in the comics. Shogo was adopted by Jubilee after he was orphaned by a meteor strike. Sounds random, but it actually tied into stuff. Anyways, for Jubilee, adopting Shogo was very important and a big part of her growing up as a character. As far as we know, Shogo is not immune like his mom, but he did have some pretty cool powers while in Otherworld. His imagination combined with fairy magic granted him the ability to turn into a dragon while in Otherworld. A mother freaking dragon. A dragon. So yeah, he is basically a dragon whenever he's there in Otherworld, which makes him pretty powerful while on those planes. Saturnine herself also took a shining to him, and he was instrumental during the fight at the end of the Ten of Swords event.
Coming in number 4, we have Cable. I mean, how do we make a list of children of X-Men and even think about leaving out Cable? Cable is the son of Scott Summers, better known as Cyclops, and the very powerful telepath Madeline Pryor, who's the evil clone of Jean Grey. See, Scott thought he was gonna have a baby with Jean, but it was a trick! There's so many tricky babies in comic books. Well, they had a baby, and that baby became insanely powerful, one of the most powerful telepaths, and then he becomes a skilled soldier, and then he goes back in time to work with his dad and sometimes against his dad. It's a very complicated situation. He also gets some sort of technovirus put into him, and it makes it harder for him to use his powers because he has to constantly use his mind to fight off the technovirus. And he gets cloned, and his clone is evil and has no virus. And he's buddies with Deadpool. The two of them work together in a straight man stooge double act kind of thing.
Number 3. Polaris. While some might think of Magneto as more of a villain and therefore not one of the X-Men, he has been a member on and off throughout his history and has even led teams both within and without the main continuity. His daughter Lorna Dane and himself have one of the most strained relationships of all of the X-Men and their kids. This has been highlighted recently and ultimately comes down to the fact that initially Magneto manipulated Lorna, keeping the truth of him being her father from her. Not a great start. Even when that fact was revealed to her, he still hadn't been the best dad, and Polaris has even called him out on this before in the comics, reminding him that he doesn't even really know her. Eesh. Still, the two teaming up together are able to perform some pretty powerful feats as both share the power of magnetism.
Coming in number 2, we have Legion. If you're Professor X's kid, you know you're going to be extremely powerful, and you would think you would be raised by the perfect dad and have one of the best fathers around. Well, even though Xavier is good at raising kids that he has no blood connection to, he isn't that good at making a strong connection with his own son. Part of it is just bad parenting, and the other part is Legion is a lot to deal with even for the most powerful, responsible, and well-adjusted parents on the planet. See, Legion isn't just one mutant. He has split personalities that live in his body, and each one of them has their own mutation. So Legion can switch from personality to personality and change his powers. That's a pretty serious combination of abilities that probably work really well together. Well, here's the thing. You don't need his powers to work together because several of these mutants are Omega level. And when I say several, I mean around 200. And even the ones that aren't strong enough to wipe out existence itself, which Legion has done more than once, they are still strong enough to create an amazing storm of chaos. And there are new powers and personalities being created all the time inside Legion's body. Rogue was inside Legion's mind once, and she said there were over 1,000 personalities with new ones being born.
Number 1. Daken. Daken is definitely one of the most iconic X-Men kids, I believe. Although, obviously X-23 is also up there. I'm sorry that I just dissed her by putting Daken above her. And he's a really well-known X-Men kid despite the fact that he has major daddy issues. Daken is now all grown up and is currently part of the X-Factor team, but he has been all over the place when it comes to his alignment since he was first introduced in the comics in Wolverine Origins issue number 10. We've seen him as both a villain working against his father, even trying to kill him. We've seen him take on the Punisher alongside the Dark Avengers acting as Osborn's assassin. We've seen him tangle even with the likes of Deadpool and be manipulated by the lovable and very unstable Mirth, but he's also acted heroically from time to time, and now seems to be more on the side of those things with X-Factor. Though, then again, Krakoa is a place for all mutants, so it's not like him being a bad boy would ever mean that he'd get kicked off the team. And when it comes to mutant bad boys, Daken is definitely one of the baddest. I need to do a mutant bad boy list so I can put him at the top.
Number 10. Reine Du Rein. Reine Du Rein, which sounds kinda like Duran Duran but isn't, is Logan's daughter from an alternate universe. Her mother was a sorceress known as Sylvie Darkness, and she grew up in a family with a strong lineage of magic users. She herself has both a healing factor and magical abilities, which allow her to open portals. Her bone claws seem to also be imbued with mystical energy as they glow. Reine made her first full appearance in 2019's Marvel Comics Presents issue number 5. Number 9. Shadow Stalker. Are you ready for the Mongrels? Cause they are coming! Coming for Wolverine's head, that is. The Mongrels were a group of Wolverine's children who all kinda had a personal vendetta against him, many of them being abandoned by him. They were convinced by Daken to become a group known as the Mongrels, who were trained by the Red Right Hand to become assassins and to take on Wolverine. Shadow Stalker was one member of the Mongrels who didn't even get a name. We also don't know who her mother was, but she had a very interesting look when it came to her costume, sporting a weird mask with flail-like hair tendrils. like a flail ponytail. Pony flails. Cannonfoot. Cannonfoot was another mongrel. Once again, we do not know his name or the name of his mother, but Daken also found him and brought him into the fold. His abilities we know to be closer to Wolverine's, giving him an animal-like instinct, superhuman strength, speed, and agility. He also appears to have claws on his toes and fingers, similar to Sabretooth. Sophist. All we think we know is that Sophist is likely Mexican. He is also a member of the Mongrels. Once again, we do not know his mother's name or his name. We know that he wears a luchador mask and enjoys shouting out battle cries in Spanish though. He often fought with a chainsaw strapped to his arm, hence his mantle of Sophist. Gunhawk. Gunhawk became the leader of the Mongrels. He actually got a name, and so did his mother. Yay! His name is William Downing, and his mother was Dolores Downing. She is believed to be a Canadian woman, though the story of her and Logan's relationship still remains pretty unknown. Downing's mother died of old age, so it's likely that she and Logan met a long time ago. And Downing himself is not a young man. He takes the name Gunhawk, inspired by the famous Western gunslinger of the same name. He doesn't appear to have any powers, but he is an expert strategist and skilled combatant. Like the rest of the Mongrels, William died fighting his father. Wolverine gave them the option to surrender, but they refused. Later on, Wolverine would discover that the team was composed solely of his children and buried them, feeling great sorrow and remorse for being made to kill them. Wolverine just has such a tragic story. Everything that happens to him is terrible. Number 5. Emiko. Emiko is the adopted daughter of Wolverine. She first appeared in Uncanny X-Men issue 181, where her mother was killed when a dragon from Battleworld rampaged through Tokyo. True story. Wolverine agreed to look after Emiko as her mother lay dying, worried for her daughter's safety. Wolverine promised to raise her as his own, and well, that's kinda what he did. Well, it was mostly his fiancée Mariko who raised her, as Wolverine of course was often busy with X-Men missions. After Mariko was assassinated by the Hand, Emiko ended up in the foster system. When Logan learned Emiko's foster parents were not taking proper care of her, he removed her from their care and asked his friend Yukio to look after her. Seeing as how Emiko has spent most of her life raised with Clan Yoshida, although she does not have any powers just yet, she is trained in the martial arts. She's even teamed up with Wolverine and Yukio at the end of issue 303 of Wolverine. It's pretty cute. Number 4. Scout. Scout was formerly known as Honey Badger and is a clone of Wolverine. She was also created using Wolverine's genetic material and that of geneticist Sarah Kinney. She is one of 10 clones created in this vein who are often referred to as the Sisters. Gabrielle Kinney, or Gabby, was created by Alchemex Genetics and was trained and used as a bodyguard to be sent out on missions. Her and her sisters were made to feel no pain, which sometimes gives her a strange edge in comparison to some of Wolverine's other children, if we're talking about power levels. Although, you know, pain is there to be felt for a reason, so. Number 3. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy is the son of Wolverine from the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610. He was adopted by James Hudson, who promised to take care of Wolverine's newborn son after the two fought together in Iraq and Wolverine died. Jimmy's last name was changed, and he was raised without ever knowing about his father, or that he was likely a mutant. When he was a teenager, his power manifested, and it was only then that he learned of his true origins. Number 2. Daken. Daken's original name was Akihiro. He is a mutant natural-born son of Wolverine and his wife Itsu. Itsu herself was very pregnant with Logan's child when she was murdered by Bucky Barnes during his time as the assassin known as Winter Soldier. It was later revealed that Itsu's unborn child did not perish, but was instead cut out of Itsu's womb and retrieved by the villain Romulus. Romulus later left the baby on the doorstep of a wealthy Japanese family, who took the baby in and raised him as their own. The family named him Akihiro, but the servants referred to him as Daken, meaning mongrel, because of his mixed racial appearance. Romulus would later reveal himself to the boy after everything kinda went sideways, claiming to be him from the future and attempting to use and manipulate Daken for his own purposes. Daken and his father, considering his backstory as such, have had a rocky relationship throughout the comics, and Daken is often painted as a villain or a reluctant anti-hero. Number 1. X-23, also known really as just Wolverine. She and her dad are both Wolverine, really. Laura Kinney is technically the genetic twin of Wolverine. She was created when Facility tried to create a clone of Weapon X to use well, as a weapon. Sarah Kinney, an acclaimed geneticist, was brought in when Xander Rice failed to replicate the adamantium bonding procedure on any of his subjects, who all died during the process. The genetic sample that Sarah was attempting to use to clone Wolverine with was damaged, which prompted her to suggest making a female clone instead of reconstructing the genetic sample artificially, which would take years. When Dr. Sutter and Xander Rice refused to agree with Kinney that this was the best way to proceed, she rebelled and decided to go against their wishes, moving forward with her version of the project. In the end, she was forced into being the surrogate mother for baby Laura and regretted her earlier views of seeing this being as only a weapon instead of the true miracle of life that it was. Laura would grow up to be X-23 and would eventually escape the facility and track down her genetic father, Wolverine. Number 10. Christoph and Kadira Von Doom. Christoph and Kadira Von Doom are the children of Storm and Dr. Doom. They come from the novel series X-Men The Chaos Engine, which is actually a trilogy wherein we explore what would happen if 3 great villains took control of the Marvel Universe, creating their own version of a perfect world using the Cosmic Cube. It starts off with Doom's variation on this world. In this reality, Dr. Doom has made Storm his wife, and she rules by his side as his Empress. The union of these powerful characters produces 2 children, Christoph and Kadira. We can assume, of course, being the children of both Doom and Storm, that they would be physically, mentally, and demonstrably powerful when it came to their abilities, especially being raised by these 2 powerhouses. Also, if I wasn't clear about this is an alternate reality, so if you're like, when did this happen? It is not main continuity. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more children of the X-Men, they have a lot of kids if we, surf through the multiverse, so we could do it for you. If you want that part 3, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9. Nocturne. Nocturne is the daughter of Nightcrawler and Scarlet Witch. Obviously, not from the main continuity. In fact, Talia Wagner is known for being a part of a multiversal hero team, the Exiles. Nocturne is from the alternate reality of Earth 2182. In fact, back on her home reality, which first appeared in Millennial Visions, Talia is also known as a member of the X-Men team, fighting alongside her father, Nightcrawler, who is actually their field leader. She is a low-level telepath with incredible superhuman agility skills, the ability to wall crawl, and the ability to fire powerful brimstone hex energy bolts, something inherited from both her father and her mother. Nocturne's physical appearance is also similar to her father's, a bit demonic looking, and of course, blue. All my blue X-Men. Top 10 blue X-Men. Actually, I feel like there's a lot of X-Men that are blue. Or mutants that are blue, maybe? There's a lot of blue mutants, for sure. I don't know about X-Men team members. Number 8. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy Hudson is the son of Wolverine from the alternate reality of Earth 1610. His powers are similar to his father's, but in this reality they're believed to work a little bit differently. As opposed to just being insane healing powers, Jimmy's power set in this universe as a mutant is believed to be based more in survival. So these powers aren't necessarily just about healing, but survival instincts and capability, meaning that Jimmy is just much better at surviving and evolving to survive than anyone else alive on the planet. And I mean that because in this reality, Wolverine eventually dies, so really Jimmy is the only one left alive who's really good at surviving. Jimmy Hudson has also been bonded to a poison before and gained control of his poison, which are basically alien-like beings resembling symbiotes in look and abilities, but ultimately a different alien race themselves, called poisons. So yeah. Jimmy is the son of Wolverine and Magneto's wife, Magda Lencher, although Wolverine urges him through a letter when the truth of his connection to Jimmy is revealed that he actually shouldn't focus too much on, who his biological parents are. Jimmy was raised by adoptive parents. His dad actually served with Logan in the war and agreed to look after Jimmy in his father's place, even giving the young boy his own family name. Hudson. Number 7. Esme. Esme is one of the main Stepford Cuckoos. Well, I mean, I guess they're all pretty main, but you know what I mean. She's probably one of the most well-known if we're talking offhand about how many of the Cuckoos you can name. Esme and the other Cuckoos are basically like the children of Emma Frost, although as I've said before, not children that she had consensually. And I didn't say that before in this list, but if you've heard me talk about the Stepford Cuckoos and their relation to Emma, yeah. Instead, these were lab babies basically made from Emma's eggs that were were stolen from Emma while she was in a comatose state. Esme, like the other cuckoos, is kind of like a genetic clone as well as a child of Emma's, and Emma actually does consider the cuckoos to be like her daughters. She treats them as though they were her own flesh and blood, and often her own responsibility, kinda stepping in to like play mom sometimes, although she does give them freedom to make their own mistakes. I guess what I mean is Emma isn't known for being like a controlling kind of parent. She's like, I'm here when you need me, otherwise you do you. More recently in the comics, Esme, known for her diamond form and powerful telepathic abilities, teamed up and primarily dated young Cable. Well, technically all the cuckoos were dating him at one point, though I would say Esme was basically the main squeeze of young Cable, and the sister that he was most taken by while he was dating all of them. And if you're like, whoa, how did that happen? The Stepford cuckoos, they share things because they're kind of like a hive mind. So they're like, we'll just all date this person. It's cool. Also Krakoa, everyone's dating everyone. Number 6, Akihiro. Akihiro is the son of Wolverine and his wife Itsu. Unfortunately, before Akihiro was even born, his life took a turn for the worse. Along with inheriting his father's powers, I think he also inherited some of his tragic luck. Wolverine has the worst luck, I think. His mother Itsu was killed before she could give birth to him, assassinated. The child was believed dead, but in reality he had been cut from her womb and possibly, due to his inherited healing powers, miraculously survived. Although that's not clear, because usually your powers don't manifest until puberty, but sometimes your powers manifest when you're in the womb. I mean, look at Professor X with Cassandra Nova, apparently that's a thing that happened. Akihiro would grow up and become a pawn of the villain known as Romulus. For most of his life, he'd also be known as Daken, a cruel nickname given to him when he was a child, being raised by his adoptive parents. The nickname was given to him because of his mixed race appearance, being part American and part Japanese. Though to be clear, his parents weren't the ones that gave it to him. It was people around his parents. Akihiro's powers are similar to Wolverine's, though his bone claws are a little bit different in terms of placement and appearance. Like his father, Akihiro is also known for being a skilled fighter as well. The apple does not fall far from the tree when it comes to fighting abilities. Number 5, Xandra Naramani. Xandra is Professor X's daughter, who is created out of his genetic material and that of his lover's genetic material, the Shi'ar Magistrix Lilandra Naramani, after both of them were believed dead. As such, Xandra grew up to become Shi'ar royalty and also spent a good amount of her life hunted because of this, with various parties attempting to use her for their own means. Xandra is an extremely gifted telepath. She can manipulate others' minds, read minds, and can create hyper-realistic telepathic illusions. Number 4, Ruby Summers. She was the ex-offspring used in our oh-so-clickable thumb for the part 1 to this list, and although she was on my extended list for that part 1, my long brainstorm that I came up with, I didn't get around to talking about her because I kind of reached a point where there were too many Summers children on that list, and I was like, I don't want to make this a top 10 children of Cyclops. We got that list, and also that's not what this list is. What can I say? Psyche's got strong genes. That's why Mr. Sinister is so obsessed after all and is known as the #1 fan of the Summers Club. Scott Summers is Ruby's dad in the alternate reality she hails from, and Emma Frost is her mother. This makes Ruby fairly powerful, not at the level of Hope or X-Man, but still pretty impressive. She's also super cool looking, which is an added bonus. Ruby hails from the alternate Earth of 1191, the home reality of famous X-Men ally Bishop. Ruby is also capable of emitting optic blasts like her dad and his brothers, but she has more control over when and how she emits these blasts, unlike her dad who's like, I literally need a visor. Ruby also comes with her Ruby form, which like her mother's diamond form, grants her invulnerability and pretty much immortality. Number 3, Olivier Raven. Olivier Raven is legally known as Olivier LeBeau and is one of the alternate reality children of Gambit and Rogue. Honestly, I feel like there are not enough of these kids out in the multiverse. I don't know if that's just me. For a couple as famous as Gambit and Rogue, I mean, you would think that we'd have a lot more kids from them, at least through the multiverse. Though admittedly, I'm not quite sure that Rogue and Gambit are really the kid having type, at least from what I've seen in the main continuity. They seem pretty content with just having their fur babies right now. So maybe they just aren't super into having kids as a family. Olivier hails from the reality of Earth 41001, the reality of Gen Next, a group Ollie is part of. He has powers similar to his mother's, except he has better control over them and is able to choose when and how much power, life energy, and memories he absorbs via physical contact. Or does doesn't absorb in cases where he just, wants to make physical contact without using his powers. He can also absorb powers on a more permanent level, although he has less control it seems over when this happens. Like his father, he also seems to have some charm-based powers. Either that, or he's just charming. Number 2. Proteus. Proteus is the son of Moira McTaggart, who before I would count more as like an ex-ally, but with recent revelations, we can definitely consider her a member in the same way we might consider someone like Charles Xavier. It turns out that Moira herself was a mutant this whole time, possessing unique reincarnation powers. She has also been known for being a leader and teacher of X-Men groups before, including the time when she led a team that Professor X then recruited, sending them into Krakoa to rescue the original X-Men. Not Krakoa as we know it now, but Krakoa as it was back in the day when it was like a monster island. Proteus is Kevin McTaggart, son of Joseph and Moira McTaggart. He is currently one of the 5 on Krakoa, and his powers as part of that team are mainly used to warp reality, allowing the non-viable eggs that egg, formerly known as gold balls, produces to become viable for life. These eggs are then used to grow new versions of fallen mutants. Proteus is an Omega level mutant who requires hosts to survive. Initially, Kevin had a body, but now he's basically just pure energy. The hosts he controls and feeds off of eventually are exhausted and killed by that energy drain, making him not just a powerful psionic mutant, but also a powerful energy vampire as well, unintentionally. Number 1. Legion. Legion is the son of Professor Charles Xavier that was conceived when he had a love affair with Gabrielle Haller, which is where Legion gets his legal last name, as his given name is David Haller. Legion is so powerful because he suffers from a severe dissociative identity disorder, where he has more than 100 personas residing within him. Each persona has a number, many have names, and they each have their own specific power set that show up whenever they take over. Because of this, there is almost nothing that Legion isn't capable of. He can manipulate matter and time. We've seen him time travel and completely warp reality as a result of his possible abilities. He also has some pretty powerful hair, which I gotta say, I'm happy that he still rocks even now in the current modern day comics. Number 10. Crusader. Crusader is the daughter of X-Men team member Rogue and Avenger Captain America. I know, a weird combination. But in the reality of Earth 9811, these two ended up together after the heroes and villains on Battleworld decided to call a truce. Remaining there, they settled down and raised families, putting their differences aside. I'm not sure how their relationship worked with Rogue not really being able to touch people and all at this point, or how she had a child considering that, but perhaps, like on Earth 616, she eventually was able to work through the trauma causing this side effect of her powers. Or perhaps the Captain America of Earth 9811 was immune to her involuntary energy and power draining effects. Either way, Sarah is their daughter. She gets much of her power from her mother, or rather she gets much of her power from the power her mother had absorbed in her day, meaning that Sarah is super strong, durable, and can fly. She is also considered worthy enough to lift Thor's hammer and wields her father's shield. Number 9. Wolverine. I really wanted to put Laura Kinney higher up on this list because, well, I love her so much, but unfortunately the psionics are just always pushing some of my favorite and most powerful characters further down on these lists. Those psionics. Oh well. Laura Kinney as X-23 and now Wolverine is still one of the most powerful children of the X-Men around. Some argue that she is more clone, while others argue that she is more biological offspring of Logan, but in reality, she's kind of a bit of both. She was created as a female clone of Wolverine after his genetic material was combined with that of her creator, scientist Sarah Kinney. Sarah noticed that there were damage spots basically in the samples of Logan's genetic material that they had, which was why their cloning process had been unsuccessful up to this point. And so she used her own genetic material to patch those rough spots, which made Laura a female clone. Sarah was forced to carry Laura to term as a surrogate by her jealous colleague Xander Rice, as punishment for even creating the female clone to begin with, a strategy that admittedly had not been approved. Laura has powers similar to her father. She has a regenerative healing factor and was also trained from birth to be a skilled fighter, bodyguard, and assassin. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about more Children of the X-Men, there are a lot out there in the multiverse. Be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Chimera. Chimera is the daughter of Storm and likely Black Panther, who hails from the alternate reality of 13729. Yeah, sadly Storm and T'Challa have never had a child together in the main continuity. I know, it's a bit of a bummer. Unless they had like a real secret child that we just don't know about yet, but I doubt it. Chimera seems to have inherited the powers of her mother, but also shares a connection to the Earth, which allows her to draw on and harness its energy. She is also a skilled tracker and can communicate telepathically with animals. I'd also assume as she's the daughter of Storm that she's a skilled combatant as well. As while Storm is more well known for her goddess status and weather manipulation powers, she is also an extremely skilled fighter. And if she's Black Panther's daughter, then she should definitely be a skilled fighter. I mean, you got two amazing parents that are both amazing fighters, so just saying. Number 7. Charles Xavier II. Charles Xavier II is the son of Charles Xavier and Mystique, if you can believe that. I know, it's pretty shocking. Charles Xavier II was technically born into the reality of Earth 616, where we later find out that while Mystique actually took the form of Moira when giving birth, Charles actually knew that he was in a relationship with Raven, so it wasn't like a trick of hers. They were actually just wanted to be together, I guess. This version of Charles, however, is an all grown up one from the alternate future of Earth 13729. When his powers first manifested, he accidentally killed his adoptive mother and ended up later joining forces with his half-brother Raze, another child of Mystique's sired by Wolverine, another child of the X-Men. Charles Xavier II has a brilliant and conniving mind and, like his father, is an immensely gifted telepath, capable of using his powers to bend others to his will. Number 6. Polaris. Polaris is the daughter of Magneto, and while you might not think of Magneto as being an X-Men, considering, you know, he started out as an X-Men villain, he has also worked with the team before and even served as a member himself. Heck, at one point he was in charge of the whole New Mutants crew, let's not forget that. Magneto may have some questionable methods when it comes to getting justice that put him on the spectrum of villain, but I think at the end of the day, he's just trying to do what's best for mutants. Or at least what he thinks is best for mutant kind. Polaris, like her father, also has magnetic-based powers, which, like her father, are also pretty impressive. Polaris is considered an alpha level mutant and recently got to join the X-Men team herself after being elected to join them in the Krakoan X-Men elections. Psychic elections. Imagine if we could all just vote psychically. That would be awesome. That would be so much easier. You would just like sit down and you'd be like, who do I want to vote for? Done. Number 5. Cable. Cable is the son of Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, non-X member Madeline Pryor, who later becomes the villain known as the Goblin Queen, and another X-Man's, Jean Grey, who kind of becomes like an adoptive mother but who also possesses Madeline's memories of raising baby Christopher. Because comics. Cable is Nathan Christopher Charles Summers, often referred to as just Nathan Summers or really just Cable, although back in the day we did know him as Baby Christopher. Cable as a baby was kidnapped by Apocalypse and infected with the techno-organic virus. This is the only thing that makes him weak-ish, but really he is still amazingly strong as he can even fend off that virus, containing it to one side of his body using his psionic powers. That in and of itself is pretty impressive, as the techno-organic virus is generally known for being, well, unstoppable. Even with his psionic powers mainly preoccupied, Cable is still a hard one to beat, as he has so many combatant-based skills that he brings to the table, and he is also an experienced time traveler besides. Number 4. Rachel Summers. Yes, get ready, because many of the most powerful X-Kids out there just happen to be Summers related, so yeah, get ready for that. Honestly, I've always wanted to do a video just to explain the complicated nature that is the Summers and Grey family tree, which honestly is a lot, and it's very timey-wimey. Rachel herself is one of those very complex kids of theirs. She is the daughter of Jean Grey and Scott Summers from the alternate Earth of 811. In that reality, she was made into a hound, a weapon used to hunt down mutants, even being one herself. Rachel is an extremely powerful telepath and telekinetic who also has the ability to chronoskim and manipulate time, even traveling through it. Rachel is also known for being an avatar of the Phoenix, at one time actually considered the true avatar for it, but then later having the power sort of dialed down to a mere echo of it. So she was no longer the true avatar, they were just like, you just have a thing, and it's not even like the real Phoenix Force, but it's like a version of it. Still, the seeming piece or echo of the Phoenix Force that resides within her has been known to flare up from time to time, or her connection to the Phoenix Force, however we want to see that, occasionally boosting Rachel to an off-the-charts level of power. But like I said, that doesn't happen all the time. Number 3. Hope Summers. Hope is the adopted daughter of Cable, who was originally known as the Mutant Messiah Baby. Cable saved Hope from Bishop, who basically wanted to destroy her. In Bishop's reality, the Mutant Messiah would end up causing the event that led to the oppression and persecution of mutants. However, in Cable's reality, the Mutant Messiah would grow up to become a savior, so you can see why these two were opposed on this topic. For the X-Men of Earth 616, the Mutant Messiah was the first new mutant to have been born since basically M-Day, and so she brought hope to the mutants of the 616 reality. Cable body slided with Hope to another time to raise her in safety. He would end up naming Hope after her adoptive mother, his love who died, Hope, and she got the Summers name from Cable himself. But although she looks a lot like Jean, she actually has
bears no biological relation to the Summers or the Grey families, at least not that we know of. Hope's mutant abilities allow her to copy the powers of anyone within a certain range. Hope also gains access to these powers without struggling at all to use them, receiving them basically at their peak level and with the auto knowledge basically of how to use them. So if you're like, oh, she's gotta like figure it out, no, she's just like instant god mode with those powers basically. Number 2, Scarlet Witch. Wanda is known for being one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe. She has used her powers to completely warp reality the world over, and her chaos magic has pulled off other immensely world-changing feats, such as flipping the alignment of all major heroes and villains in the comics during the events of Axis. Initially, her chaos magic powers were believed to be somewhat mutant in origin. In fact, they were kind of presented initially as like Jinx-like mystical mutant abilities during her first appearances. However, we've since learned that both Wanda and her superpowered brother Pietro, aka Quicksilver, were never really mutants at all, nor were they related to Magneto. However, they still spent a good amount of their life around Magneto, who secretly believed them to be his children, and then another good amount of time thinking that he was their actual father, until it was revealed that this was all due to manipulation by the High Evolutionary. High Evolutionary just coming in and messing pretty much everybody up when it comes to their backstories and origins. Wanda herself has never really gotten along with the X-Men, especially since the events of M-Day, but she is still considered, I think, a part of Magneto's family, and a powerful one at that, regardless of her status as a mutant or a non-mutant. I know there are some people out there that want to be like, it never happened, but like, they still spent a lot of time together thinking that they were family, so I think we can still count it, friends. Also, make Wanda a mutant again. Do it. Make it happen. Give me Wanda and Quicksilver back. Number 1, X-Man. X-Man is Nathaniel Grey, the lab-born child made by combining the genetic materials of both Jean Grey and Cyclops. So basically like Cable, but if he had been made perfectly by villain Mr. Sinister. He actually hails from the alternate reality of AOA, Age of Apocalypse, Earth 295. Here, Sinister created him to use as his own weapon, but of course, Nate being so powerful, managed to escape Sinister and instead ended up being raised by Forge of Earth 295. He is considered one of the most powerful mutants of all time, which would also make him one of the most powerful children of the X-Men out there. Nate can warp reality, resurrect the dead, resurrect himself, travel to alternate Earths and dimensions, and even manipulate the time stream. He is basically the most OP of characters when it comes to the Marvel Universe. And if you've seen artwork of him, you will probably recognize him as someone who looks like Mutant Jesus, which yes, he is god level, so that is the point.